My name is Alex Turner, 34 years old, living in Chicago, a bustling city filled with complex stories. What I'm about to share isn't just about love or a seemingly solid relationship. It's about betrayal, disrespect, and a life-changing decision. About 5 years ago, I met Emily through mutual friends at an outdoor BBQ party. She instantly impressed me with her radiant smile, charming humor, and optimistic soul. We quickly grew close, talking late into the night as if our souls were destined to meet. Last year, on a beautiful Sunday in Lincoln Park, I got down on one knee and asked her to be my wife. She said yes, tears of happiness streaming down her face, and I thought this was the start of a warm and peaceful journey. However, marrying Emily also meant stepping into a new world, her family. A family I would soon realize was my greatest challenge yet. Emily's parents, Richard and Karen, are the kind of people who love the spotlight. They are loud, opinionated, and always want to be the center of attention. At first, I thought it was just their personality, but the more I saw, the more I realized their entitlement ran deep. This story wouldn't be complete without mentioning my mom, Diane Turner, the most wonderful woman I've ever known. She passed away 2 years ago after bravely fighting cancer for 4 years. She wasn't just my mother. She was my inspiration, teaching me unconditional love, resilience, and above all, how to hold on to your values no matter what life throws at you. Before she passed, she helped many people quietly, including Emily's family. Years ago, when their small restaurant was on the verge of bankruptcy, my mom co-signed a bank loan to save them. No one else would take that risk, but she believed in them. She helped reorganize their finances, set up a plan to bring the business back to profitability, and even paid for repairs when their oven broke down, never asking for a cent back despite her own medical bills piling up. She also covered college tuition for Emily's older brother Jake, so he wouldn't have to drop out. All this she did silently without demanding thanks or recognition, even though I knew Emily's family never truly appreciated it. When my mom died, I was devastated beyond words. I thought Emily would be my rock during the darkest times, but the reality was far harsher. She often ignored my grief and even opposed my ideas to honor my mom during our wedding ceremony. Whenever I suggested dedicating a moment to remember my mom, Emily would say, "Won't that make everyone sad? Weddings are supposed to be happy." I felt deeply hurt, as if the person I loved couldn't understand or share my most important feelings. Meanwhile, Emily's family grew increasingly hostile and dismissive toward me and my family. They openly insulted my mom in front of guests during the rehearsal dinner, a betrayal I could never forgive. Though I tried to stay calm, the ongoing disrespect became unbearable. At the dinner, I stood up and confronted them openly, making it clear I wouldn't tolerate such disrespect, especially toward my mom, who had done so much for them. That was the moment I decided to call off the wedding right then and there to protect my dignity and values. After walking out of the restaurant, a strange relief washed over me, though my heart still ached deeply. As Emily and I grew more serious, small signs of friction between her and my mom began to surface. At first, they were just minor remarks. Emily would avoid talking about my mom or call her overbearing and too involved. I remember when I first introduced Emily to my mom. Everything seemed fine. My mom took an instant liking to Emily and said she seemed like a good girl. Emily was polite and respectful. But over time, their relationship grew strained. Emily began to make snide comments, calling my mom too controlling or always meddling. It hurt me deeply to hear that. Meanwhile, my mom, a woman who had endured so much hardship, quietly helped Emily's family without expecting thanks or recognition. I will never forget the years my mom co-signed a loan to help them save their struggling restaurant. She risked her health and money because she believed in them. When their oven broke down, my mom paid for repairs in full, even though she was battling cancer and needed that money for medical bills. She said to me, "You must help people when you can, even if they never thank you." Not just financially, my mom spent hours helping with their bookkeeping, babysitting Emily's nephew so he could study. Despite all this, Emily's family showed little genuine gratitude. They often appeared indifferent, even annoyed when my mom visited. I kept quiet, hoping to avoid conflict, but the feeling of distrust grew. Emily often dismissed my feelings about my mom, saying, "You need to move on. Your mom wouldn't want you stuck in grief." Those words didn't comfort me, they cut like a knife. I felt isolated fighting this battle alone with a partner who couldn't empathize and a family that felt alien. Despite it all, I tried to hold on, hoping things would improve. Maybe I was too sensitive or needed to be more patient. But things only got worse as we planned the wedding. Little did I know the biggest storm was yet to come. As Emily and I plunged into wedding planning, what I expected to be joyous days soon turned into a whirlwind of stress and conflict. Emily was very close to her family, especially her parents, Richard and Karen. They constantly meddled in every tiny detail of the wedding. Whenever I tried to offer my opinion, they dismissed me, making me feel like an outsider in my own celebration. One vivid memory stands out when we discussed the venue. I wanted a cozy, simple restaurant where close friends and family could gather comfortably. But Richard insisted on a grand, extravagant hotel banquet hall, a place that screamed opulence. "I think we should hold it at the Grand Royale Hotel," he declared confidently. "It'll make everyone talk." I hesitated and said, "Richard, I just want a warm and welcoming space where people can enjoy themselves." He scoffed, "Alex, weddings are about showing status, not comfort." Emily stood beside him, nodding in agreement. At that moment, I felt like I was invisible. Karen, too, criticized my choices, from seating arrangements to floral decorations and even the guest list. "Our social circle will be attending," she said sharply. "You can't disappoint them." I smiled awkwardly and replied, "Karen, I just want to invite people who truly matter to us." But my words only seemed to irritate her further. What troubled me most was Emily's attitude. She began siding with her parents more and more, shutting down any concerns I raised. "Alex, you're overthinking," she said repeatedly. "My parents know what they're doing." It felt less like a partnership and more like me being an observer in my own wedding. Small disagreements escalated into bigger conflicts, but I kept my calm, thinking that once the wedding day was over, things would settle. I also felt the pressure to please not just Emily, but her entire family. Once during a planning meeting at her parents' home, Karen was in full control, flipping through seating charts and flower catalogs as if organizing a royal affair. I suggested simplifying the centerpieces to honor my mom's taste, something understated and elegant. Karen barely looked up. "Oh, Patricia had interesting taste, didn't she? But this is Lydia's day. Let's keep it modern." Her tone was laced with sarcasm, and I froze. It was a subtle jab, but hit me like a punch. Emily didn't say a word. She just scrolled her phone, pretending nothing happened. I wanted to confront Karen right then, but swallowed my pride to avoid a scene. Looking back, I regret not standing up. Every insult, every slight piled up, but I kept brushing them off for peace. The day of the rehearsal dinner was approaching, and I could already feel the tension building. The day of the rehearsal dinner finally arrived, and I couldn't shake the heavy tension hanging in the air. Emily and I drove to the lavish restaurant chosen by her parents. She remained silent the entire way, scrolling through her phone, barely responding to my attempts to lighten the mood. When we arrived, Richard and Karen were already there, greeting guests with self-satisfied smiles as if they owned the place. The restaurant dazzled with pristine white tablecloths, sparkling chandeliers, and an extravagant spread that screamed opulence and status. Most guests were Emily's relatives or her parents' business associates. My own family, my dad, my sister, and a few close friends were a small minority relegated to a distant corner. Pulling Emily aside, I whispered, "Why are so few of my family here? Why weren't more of our friends invited?" She shrugged and sighed, "Alex, your family is small. My parents had to fill the room somehow. Don't think too much about it." Her words cut deep, making me feel alienated and unwelcome. The dinner began with Richard stepping up to the microphone. His booming voice filled the room as he addressed the crowd like a keynote speaker, but his words dripped with condescension. "Welcome, everyone. Tonight we celebrate the union of two families, our daughter Emily and of course Alex, the lucky man she's chosen." He emphasized my name in a way that made me shrink inside. He praised Emily as the family's shining star, implying that I was someone who would keep her grounded. "We've always taught Emily to aim high," he said. "And while Alex may not be exactly what we envisioned," he let the sentence hang as if it were a joke, prompting a few chuckles from guests. My heart clenched with every word. Then Karen took the stage, strutting like she was accepting an award. She praised Emily but laced her speech with barbs aimed at me. "Emily is the perfect daughter, deserving the best in life," she said. "Thankfully, she's patient because she's already taught Alex so much." I nearly choked on my water. What had Emily taught me to bite my tongue while her parents insulted me at every turn? Karen turned to me and said, "We're so happy to welcome Alex into the family. Finally, someone who doesn't mind getting their hands dirty, right?" Her laughter, echoed by relatives, left me feeling isolated and humiliated. I looked to Emily, hoping she'd defend me, but she merely smiled along as if it were all a joke. Then Richard raised his glass and said, "Before we wrap up, let's remember someone who played a big role in shaping Alex, his mom, Diane." For a moment, I hoped for kindness, but instead he called her a meddler with a habit of sticking her nose into things. Karen chimed in, "Everyone knows she always insisted on helping even when no one asked." They spoke of my mom as if she were a nosy neighbor, and rage flooded through me. My hands clenched tightly under the table, my face burning with humiliation. I looked at Emily, waiting for her to intervene. She laughed it off, saying, "Oh, Dad, stop." Their mockery of my mother's memory in front of everyone was unbearable, and Emily found it amusing. The room fell into an awkward silence as guests tried to move past the disaster of their speeches. Karen approached our table, forcing a sweet smile. "Michael, we just wanted to add some humor to the evening. It's all in good fun." That was the final straw. I stood up my chair, scraping loudly against the floor. "Are you serious?" I said, my voice trembling but firm. "You've spent the entire night mocking my mom who helped your family when no one else would. And you call that a joke? I won't stand for it." The room went deadly silent. Richard sneered, "Relax, Michael, you're overreacting." I shot back, "How is mocking her generosity good fun?" "You called her meddling, said she was too much. That's not humor, that's disrespect." I saw some of Emily's cousins avoid my gaze, clearly uncomfortable. My dad stared daggers at Richard, and my sister's arms were crossed, ready to jump in. Karen laughed nervously. "Oh, Michael, don't be so sensitive. We were just sharing stories. Everyone knows how Patricia liked to take charge." I raised my voice. Take charge. She saved your business, paid for your oven repairs, your patio renovations, your son's tuition. And you repay her by turning her into a punchline at a rehearsal dinner. Richard leaned back, annoyed enough. We didn't mean any harm, but if you're going to throw a tantrum, maybe you're not ready for marriage. His words showed how little respect he had for me and my mom. Emily tugged my sleeve quietly. Michael, let's talk outside. I pulled away. No, not until your parents understand how disrespectful they've been. Karen sighed dramatically. Michael, this is supposed to be a happy occasion. You're ruining it for everyone. I shook with anger. No, you ruined it the moment you decided to trash my mom in front of all these people. And Emily, you just sat there and let it happen. Her face flushed red. I didn't know they'd say all that. I interrupted, but you laughed. You laughed at every insult. You didn't stop them. Whispers started rising around the room, guests murmuring about the scene. I didn't care. This wasn't for them. This was standing up for my mom. Richard finally stood fed up. All right, Michael, if you're so offended, maybe you should leave. I considered it, but when I looked around and saw my dad, my sister, and a few supportive friends watching, I knew I couldn't let this go. No, I said firmly, I'm not leaving until you understand what you've done. Richard opened his mouth to reply, but I cut him off. You treat my mom like a nuisance, but without her you wouldn't even have this restaurant connection. She helped because she cared not for praise. Now you mock her memory. That's disgusting. The room fell silent again. Even Richard looked stunned, speechless. Karen opened her mouth, but no words came. Emily sat silently, her face a mix of shame and anger. Finally, Richard muttered, "We didn't mean it like that." I shook my head. Doesn't matter how you meant it. What matters is how it sounded. You don't get to rewrite who my mom was to fit your narrative. She deserved better, and so do I. With that, I stepped back, grabbed my coat, and headed for the door. Want me to leave? Fine, but don't expect me to come back. My dad immediately stood to follow me. My sister grabbed her purse and shot one last glare at Karen before joining us. A couple of friends stood uncertain but supportive. Emily called after me, "Michael, wait." I didn't stop. I walked out of that restaurant with my head held high, though my heart pounded fiercely. Outside, my dad put a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing," he said quietly. "Your mom would be proud." I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. For the first time in months, I felt at peace. The morning after the rehearsal dinner, I woke up to a flood of unread messages on my phone. Most were from Emily, pleading and apologizing. Others were from Richard and Karen, some even from distant relatives I barely knew. Emily's texts were filled with sorrowful apologies and desperate requests to talk things over. "Alex, please give me a chance. I don't want to lose you," she wrote. Richard's messages, on the other hand, were angry and threatening. "You humiliated our family in front of everyone. You will regret this." Karen played the victim, accusing me of being unfair. "Emily deserves happiness. You're destroying everything over a misunderstanding." I chose not to reply to any of them. I needed time to process and find calm. The storm of emotions overwhelmed every hope I had for a happy marriage. A few days later, Emily showed up at my apartment looking exhausted with red eyes swollen from crying. "Alex, please talk to me," she begged. I looked at her coldly. "Don't you get it? This isn't a simple matter. I need respect and understanding, things I've never received." She broke down, confessing her fears of facing her parents and her feelings of helplessness. But those words couldn't heal the wounds. Then came the devastating discovery my mother's keepsake necklace, an heirloom of priceless meaning, had gone missing. I knew Emily was the only one who had access to my apartment recently besides family and close friends. I called her directly asking about the necklace. She admitted to borrowing it without permission. My anger exploded. "You had no right. This is not a trinket to be borrowed and returned," I shouted. Emily sobbed, explaining she wanted to keep a piece of my mother to feel closer to me. I couldn't accept that. The necklace was more than jewelry, it was the soul of my family. I demanded she return it, but she said it was at her parents' house. My disappointment and rage reached their peak. I severed all contact with Emily and her family. Though painful, I felt a strange relief, as if finally free. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to sort through my mother's keepsake box, a precious collection I had kept since her passing. Inside were her favorite necklace, a pair of earrings she wore to church, and an old locket with a picture of my grandmother. That locket had been passed down from mother to daughter for generations. It was not just jewelry, it was a piece of my family's history. But when I opened the box that day, the necklace was gone. I searched every corner of my apartment, drawers, shelves, the floor, but it was nowhere to be found. My heart sank. The only person who had access recently besides close friends and family was Emily. I messaged her immediately. "Did you take the necklace from my mom's keepsake box?" She was silent for a few minutes, then replied, "I borrowed it. I wanted to keep a piece of her with me to feel closer to you." I couldn't believe it. I called her. Her voice was defensive but shaky. "Alex, it's not a big deal. I was going to give it back." I was furious. That necklace has been in my family for generations. It's not something you just take because you feel like it. How could you think that's okay? She started crying, saying she wanted to feel connected to me and didn't think I'd notice. Of course I noticed. It was my mom's. Worse, she didn't even ask. She admitted the necklace was at her parents' house for safekeeping. That was the final straw. She took something sacred without permission and left it with people who never respected my family. I told her, "Sorry doesn't cut it. I'm coming to get it now." Driving to Richard and Karen's house, anger bubbled inside me. When they opened the door, Karen's fake sweet smile faded as she saw me. "Michael," she said cautiously, "what are you doing here?" "I'm here to get my mom's necklace," I said bluntly. "Emily told me it's here." Karen looked confused and annoyed but stepped aside. Minutes later, Emily came downstairs holding the necklace, her eyes red and face blotchy. I snatched it from her hand and examined it carefully. Satisfied, I stuffed it into my pocket and turned to leave. "Oh, Michael, wait," she pleaded. "Please don't be upset. I was just trying to protect it." I cut her off. She stole from me my mom, as if what she's already done wasn't enough. Her face crumpled and tears flowed again, but I didn't stop. I slammed the door behind me. In the days after, I blocked her number, deleted her messages, and cut off all ways she could reach me. I was done with her, her family, and the drama they dragged into my life. Calling off the wedding was painful, but this was the final nail in the coffin. As exhausting as it was, it also felt like closure. I had stood up for myself, for my mom, and for the values she taught me. I knew I had made the right choice. In the weeks and months that followed the breakup, I faced a storm of emotions. The heartbreak was deep. The betrayal felt like a wound that wouldn't heal overnight. But amid the pain, I started to find strength. I realized that true love is not just about passion or promises. It's about respect, understanding, and shared values. No matter how much you love someone, if the foundation of trust and respect is broken, the relationship cannot survive. My mother's memory deserved better than the humiliation she endured, and so did I. I began to rebuild my life by surrounding myself with those who truly cared, family, old friends, and new allies, who offered support without judgment. I dedicated time to care for myself physically, mentally, and emotionally, relearning how to find peace within. Keeping my mother's teachings close, I carried her lessons of kindness, resilience, and integrity as guiding lights. One day I reconnected with Marissa, a mutual friend who had witnessed much of the turmoil. She shared her perspective and assured me that many recognized the truth and supported my choices. That solidarity brought comfort and reminded me I wasn't alone. I learned that the best revenge isn't confrontation or resentment, it's living well with dignity and authenticity. Life is long, and I chose to invest my energy in relationships that uplifted me, not those that tore me down. Most importantly, I learned to honor my own worth, to stand firm for what I believe in, and to never compromise on respect. I know my mother would want me to be happy, free, and true to myself. And for the first time in a long while, I feel exactly that. After cutting all ties with Emily and her family, my life entered a challenging phase, but also a time to rediscover myself. At first, I felt lonely and deeply hurt. I lost the person I once thought would be my life partner, lost trust in her family, and above all, lost peace in my soul. But at the same time, I learned valuable lessons that only pain can teach. I realized that love is not just romance or promises, but respect, understanding, and acceptance of each other in all circumstances. I learned that no matter how much you love, when basic values are broken, you cannot keep forcing it. The public insult to my mother was the final straw that ended this relationship. I began rebuilding my life by spending more time with close family and true friends. I also devoted time to taking care of myself, both physically and mentally. Especially, I preserved the memories of my mother, holding on to the lessons she taught and living in the way she wished. One day I met Marissa again, a mutual friend who had witnessed much of this story. We talked extensively about betrayal, loss, and how to rise after falling. She told me that many people had seen the true nature of Emily and her family and supported my decision. That made me feel less alone and gave me strength to move forward. I also realized that the best revenge is not confrontation or argument, but living well, living right, and not letting toxic people affect you. Life is long, and I will spend my time loving those who truly deserve it. I know my mother also wants me to be happy, free, and true to myself. And that is exactly what I am doing day by day.